All right. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. We started this podcast as a way to create a central resource of the best financial advisor practice growing tips shared by the most outstanding advisors in the industry, of which our guest today is definitely one. These outstanding financial advisors agree to be on the show and provide a ton of value for free, all in the hopes that our audience might learn from their words. My father was a financial advisor, and financial advisors are the main client we serve. So my marketing agency's mission is to help every financial advisor grow their business in an effort to help the world become more financially secure. Today, we have the rare pleasure of talking with an incredible financial advisor, Jennifer McCosley. Jennifer, or Jenny. Jenny, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, and thanks for having me, Chris. I'm a North Carolina native. I have lived in North Carolina for most of my life, but definitely have ventured out from here to see some other places and experience some other cultures. Um, my father was in the military, and we got a long line of military before him, so definitely have an appreciation for that. So here in North Carolina, in Greensboro specifically, I mean, I have clients from all over the place. And I think my niche is working with people who specifically have, a reason to do financial planning for a special needs individual or, a person living with an intellectual or developmental disability. That's where I like to focus some of my energy. And aside from that, I work with all kinds of clients, whether they're, aspiring to have wealth or they already have wealth and want to maintain it, approaching retirement or in retirement and looking for assistance with finances all the way through. Um, and again, folks from all over the place, whether it's here in the US or elsewhere, but definitely not the career I saw myself having when I was a child or, an adolescent. Kind of stumbled into this. And so far, it's just been amazing. It's been a great way to build a career and to build a lifestyle for myself and my kids.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Lot to unpack there. I really want to discuss the, serving families of special needs folks. But I want to start at the beginning first. So how did you find yourself in this industry?
Yeah, so I thought like all the way through, I was crazy about animals and definitely thought I was going to be a veterinarian. That was my
Mhm.
goal, my intent. Graduated high school, like interviewing in colleges for, the plan of going pre-vet med. That was the goal. And I ended up at Campbell University in North Carolina. Um, it was an amazing school to be, a student at, and it was a good location, not far from where my parents lived. But even with those things being things I learned later were great about it, it made it my last choice at the time. I thought I wanted to, get away, go someplace different. And I thought I wanted to be pre-vet med. And so I needed a degree in science from somewhere that specialized in that. And Campbell never crossed my mind, but I got some scholarship money to go to Campbell, and that kind of made the decision for me. So I ended up at Campbell. And then in my first couple of science classes, biology, chemistry, I was just like, wow, this is actually not the path that I'm going to be on. This is not for me. I did okay in those classes, but it just opened my eyes to like, what
Yeah.
it really involves and that it just wasn't going to be a passion of mine. So I did some introspection and decided maybe I'll go the business route because running a business sounded like an aspect of being a veterinarian that I liked. Um, so I ended up in the business degree program and in a business law class that was taught by Jimmy Witherspoon, who happened to be the head of the trust and wealth department. I didn't know anything about trust or wealth management at the time, but he pulled me aside one day and said, "You're really good at this class, this business law class. Do you like this stuff, or are you just good at it?" And I said, "No, I really like this. This is really cool stuff." And he said, "Well, you're in the wrong program. Then you need to be in the trust and wealth program." So I ended up in the trust and wealth program after ending up at Campbell, and it's honestly been amazing. So Campbell's program, prepares you for the certified financial planner test. You can test for the certified financial planner immediately after graduating the program. And it took me longer. I didn't do it right away, but once I finally did take that exam and started using the CFP marks, I felt like my career was really, moving forward. I started in a bank, went from a bank to a family office, from a family office to another wealth advisory firm working with individuals and families. And then just 2 years ago, I made a move from there to the firm I'm with now. And it's just kind of been a snowball that's been building over time, of just learning new things and learning what I liked and learning how I could be helpful to families and just inadvertently ending up here, honestly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, those chemistry and biology classes, those are not fun.
They're
I
tough.
yeah.
Hats off to anyone who does a lot of those.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, my roommate in college was pre-med, and he literally, I had a pretty chill college. I went to business school, so I was able to go out with friends, play sports, have kind of a normal college experience. And he just studied. I was like, his name was Nadius. I was like, Nadius, you want to go get pizza and a beer? And he'd be like, nope, gotta study. And I'd be like,
That is
all
funny.
right.
Yep, yep. I had a roommate who was a pharmacy student. She was, pre-farm and then preparing to go into pharmacy school. And that was her life. She did a lot of studying. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But now, uh, almost 20 years later, he's a doctor. He's got a big house, wife, three kids. He's definitely reaping the benefits. So
All paid off.
good for him. Awesome. So, as you were kind of making your way in the industry, how did you get traction? Did you initially start with the special need individuals or families niche, or how did this all come about?
Yeah, so no, that niche is new. I think about 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to really focus in this area. So, backing up a little bit. So my family decided after my parents had me and had my brother, decided they still wanted a much bigger family. They were interested in having a big family, but it wasn't going to work for them to continue to have more children. So they looked at adopting.
Mhm.
And my parents, the story goes that my parents met with an adoption agent and told her that they had two children, they would like to have four. And the next time they met with the adoption agent, she said, I have these profiles for you to look at. I'd like you to take a look here. It's a sibling group. These are siblings, and it's very hard to place a sibling group. Kids that come together very often get separated just because it's hard to keep them together. Um, but the fact that you're interested in multiple children makes you a good candidate for these particular profiles. Will you take a look? And there were four children. It was a sibling group of
Mm.
four. And my
Oh wow.
parents were like, I think maybe there was some misunderstanding. We were thinking about wanting four, like total. But they fell in love with these profiles. It was just paperwork on a table, but they said we'd like to give this a try. And so those four kids came to live with us and they never left. They became adopted by my parents and became my siblings. The oldest one was about 8 months older than me. And I think we were like 9 at the time. So he pretty quickly turned 10 around that time. And the youngest was 4. So we went
Mm.
from 2 kids to 6 kids overnight. And when by the time I was in, so that was probably like third grade. By the time I was in seventh grade, my parents wanted, my mom in particular, wanted to adopt one more. She wanted a baby. She was like, I really just would love to have a baby one more time. And the adoption agent said, you're not going to have an easy road in trying to adopt a baby because there are people who wait in lines for a healthy baby. And she said, well, what if I'm interested in a baby that's not healthy? And so she adopted a child who he was an infant at the time, and he had cerebral palsy and hydrocephalus. So that's water on the brain, that's control with a shunt. And cerebral palsy, most people know about, but affects your muscles and your um, fine motor skills, that sort of thing. And it turns out, as an infant, it was very hard to know like what's the extent of this. But as he's grown and aged, he's great. Like he's a pretty semi-independent person who can definitely have amazing conversations with you.
Hmm.
Cannot math to save his life, like no math for Joey, but otherwise he's an awesome person. Um, and then after Joey was adopted, I don't know, they got a bug or something and they decided to do it two more times. So,
Wow.
yeah. So then Christopher came along when he was about 2 years old and he had a chromosomal anomaly that affected his many things, but primarily his digestive system. And then Rosanna came along and she was an infant when she was adopted and she has Dandy Walker syndrome, which is not very well known, but it affects a lot of things, her temperature regulation, and lots of other things. So those three became a big part of my life in my like late teens, early adulthood, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, Christopher, the middle one, passed away when he was 10. His chromosomal anomaly just shut his body down. But the other two, like I said, Joey's great, Rosanna's doing great. They're both really fun people. They're both adults now. They're both, in their 20s. And then after that, just to round out the story, my parents ended adopting two more who also were siblings. And so there are 11 of us all together, if you want to
Wow.
count. I have this huge, unusual family, and I have these three, now two special needs siblings. And watching my parents like navigate Medicaid and resources and the school system, and then them growing and turning into adults and having to look at guardianship and what kind of estate planning do my parents need? What kind of estate documents do they need? Um, how does money work? What benefits are available? It was just watching them navigate it. I realized that there are not a lot of resources for this community that help make sense of all the information. Like there's lots of information, but probably not a lot of people in this job who are, willing to help you make sense of it and help you figure out what applies to you and your circumstances. So, um, anyway, that's long story short. That's 2 years ago. I did a chartered special needs consultant designation through the American College to really dive into that. And it has actually helped my business to grow. I've heard many times that having a niche is a great way to grow your business. And I mean, that real wasn't exactly the motivation, but I have seen it work, that I have had referrals come in primarily from estate planning attorneys
Mm.
who, look at this client who's come in to ask lots of questions about special needs planning. And, one thing leads to another, and there's an opportunity there for them to work with an advisor, especially one who understands that world.
Wow. That's an amazing story. I mean, obviously your parents like incredibly selfless and beautiful decision to they wanted two, they came home with nine.
Yeah, over time. That's right. Yeah. I'm not sure we
But
ever really planned for that, but that's where we ended up.
yeah, and that's amazing. They make movies about,
Yeah.
that selfless acts like that. But at the same time, I mean like you and your, did you say your brother? Um
Mhm.
like I mean big ups to you guys as well because that was just as big of a decision and a sacrifice,
Yeah.
to
Thank you for that.
embrace these new additions and welcome them and I'm sure take care of them. So that was a huge decision for the family. So I think you and your brother deserve a heap of praise for
Well,
that as
thank you
well.
for that. I mean, yeah, it certainly changed our day-to-day rhythms, and our routines. And it was going from 2 to 6. That was the big leap for me and my brother, inviting all these kids into our home and just kind of learning to adapt and get along with each other. And my
Hmm.
parents had to get a bigger van, and things like that. But after that, the special needs adoptions one at a time were, um, I don't really remember the conversations. I feel certain there probably were conversations at home with my parents, like, "Hey, this is what we're thinking about doing." but I don't remember any pushback. I don't remember us going, "Are you crazy?" It was like, "Okay, this is what we're doing." And my dad used to say that kids are like puppies. Once you have 6 or 7 of them, what's one more?
Yeah, I mean that's good logic. Well, that's amazing. That's really cool. I feel like, you or your one of your mom or your dad, like a memoir is in order. Like
Yeah.
just,
Somebody needs to
you
write that.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, make movies, TV shows about that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a beautiful thing. That's awesome. So, you know, you're growing your practice. You have this like very unique and special family. You already have like a built-in understanding and passion. You get the special certification for that. Um, how do you best serve this type of client? What are they most in need of?
Yeah, that's a good question. It kind of depends on where they are in the stage of, understanding and having benefits in place and their own estate planning too. Like those two things are pretty key. Um, because they have to really go together. If a client comes to me and says that they have a special needs adult child who um, is already on, SSDI or SSI, already on Medicaid or Medicare or some combination of those things, um, then that changes kind of frames how we think about money for that child. Because
Hmm.
you have to be very careful about what income you create while a person is on, say, an SSI benefit. That is like an entitlement benefit that is tied to not having too much income. So if you create
Hmm.
income there, then you could disable those benefits from coming in, and that would be tragic, right? You'd have to start all over from trying to qualify. Um, and then the other thing too is like in North Carolina, we have a thing called the innovations waiver, which is a part of the Medicaid system, but you can put your name on a waiting list and wait generally a very long time. But when your name finally reaches the top of the list, there are even more benefits available to you. And that could
Mm.
be like supplemental services. I don't know the list by heart, but things like taking classes or a PT program, maybe something that would be in addition to kind of your run of the mill medicine, the things that you were already doing. Um, and so that's talking with the client to see like, well, have you signed up for innovations waiver? If so, where are you in that process? Are you already receiving those benefits? That sort of thing. Um, and then, of course, from the estate planning side, I'm not an attorney and I don't do any kind of law here, but, making sure that they're working with an attorney who understands the circumstances and understands how to frame up an estate plan so that, if that child were to inherit, and that even if a child has a disability, but it doesn't interfere with their ability to manage money, like perhaps they're good stewards of their resources and just disabled in some other way,
Hmm.
still we might want that money to flow through a trust so that it again doesn't derail other benefits they have in place. Um, so working with an attorney who knows all that very well and making sure that on our end we have account titling correct and beneficiaries set up in the right way. So there's a lot of that, like navigating where are they in the process and buttoning up little pieces. But then another place that I've found so far, and this was kind of unplanned, it just seems to work out this way, is just being empathetic, like just understanding
Mm.
what this person's
Hmm.
going through, what amount of time they have to spend on this adult child of theirs, or young child of theirs that has different demands than your average kid, or especially an average adult kid. Um,
Mm.
my parents will be raising children forever. They will not, these two will probably never really leave the nest,
Mm.
so
My mom would love that.
lots of moms would, yeah. That's right. That's right. And so to have like a family compound where, you live in the tiny house next door sometimes ideal for families and a dream
Hmm.
come true. But and that is the reality for my family. They have a tiny house next door that Joey lives in because Joey likes a degree of independence, but isn't really independent.
Hmm.
Um, so, my parents to take a vacation, to be gone for 2 weeks is a big deal. Like they have to really plan for that. So if you're thinking about retirement and you're building a financial plan and you're dropping in all your kind of status quo stuff like new vehicles and vacations and maybe home maintenance, things like that that regularly show up in financial plans, um, we have to think about those differently. We have to think about what does a vacation actually involve? Do you have a caregiver coming in? Do you pay for that as well? Or perhaps some kind of respite care through a benefit like Medicaid. So it's just a lot more involved as we think about planning and just showing some empathy and some understanding to the clients who are going through that, or thinking about what happens to their child if something happens to them. Where does that child go to live? Having to proactively prompt those conversations that nobody wants to have. That's been a big part of my job.
Yeah, yeah, and that's I feel like that level of service with that specificity and your experience, like that's so much of that is an intangible value. They find you and they're like, my goodness, I didn't even know how much I needed you.
Yeah, this is
So
very true.
that's
Yeah.
yeah.
I had a
So that's
client.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to give an example. There was a client who client lives near me, maybe the next town over, and she has an adult son who lives with her who has special needs. She also has an adult son who's married and has a family and lives out of state. And he and his wife were trying to help her find a financial advisor and specifically looking for an advisor who understood special needs, but also hopefully somebody who was local to her. And it took them a long time, but then they kind of stumbled across me, and it was the designation. Shout out to American College for the Charter Special Needs Consultant designation, but that was what caught their eye and drew them in. Um, and so, in working with them, it's just been that. It's been the family as a whole, including these able-bodied adult children who live out of state. A child and his wife who live out of state. They're all like, every time we talk, they're like, "Wow, we're so glad we have you." And I mean, it's very fulfilling. Like I feel like I'm tooting my own horn a little bit, but it feels so good to know that you're helping people. That you're not just
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
this rinse and repeat business that it can be, right? Every business, I'm sure, feels monotonous sometimes, but
Hmm.
when you feel like you're getting to be really able to help somebody, like it can be really fulfilling.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, that's a beautiful thing. To do something you really enjoy and then like directly see the results and the positive impact. That's amazing. That's a beautiful type of client that you work with. It's amazing. Um, so in terms of like how you get the word out about this, like how do you find clients? How do you even because I mean before we talked, I had some inkling that there were financial advisors that had special needs members of their family and had direct lived experience, and then had I didn't know there was a specific certification for that. That's really cool. But I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if most of your clients were like, I didn't even know a specific advisor focus for my needs even existed.
Mhm. Yeah, it is a pretty common thing. And like I have lots of clients who don't have any special needs tie whatsoever. They're just
Hmm.
regular old retirees or whatever. And they're always a little surprised, like, oh, I didn't know that you had that designation. Oh, I didn't even know what those letters meant on your business card. Um, Yeah, most people recognize the CFP, the Certified Financial Planner is like the gold standard in financial planning, and it's well accepted and pretty well recognized, definitely in the industry, but also by people who are looking for a financial advisor. They see enough like marketing content out there to know to look for a CFP. Um,
Hmm.
and it was interesting. I was just having this conversation with somebody in my office recently about the chartered financial consultant, a CHFC, is pretty much all the same content as a CFP, but not as well marketed,
Mm.
um, so I have this, the charter special needs consultant designation, and that's great, but like it doesn't really sell itself a whole lot. I mean, there's just not the big marketing engine behind it that CFP has. So I do a lot of talking about it, and it's on my bio. The story about my family is part of my bio on the website. So if a person gets that far, then maybe they feel like they're in the right place. But knowing where to look, it probably is a challenge for people. I do a lot of networking with estate planning attorneys because I think that helps, and with CPAs too, just because CPAs see maybe the medical transactions on the tax return, and a lot of times they do get to know their clients, on about their families and that sort of thing. So those networking opportunities, the efforts made to network specifically with conversations about, special needs planning, I think it helps quite a lot. And like I said, some of the ones that have come my way lately have been through attorney referrals. So it must be gaining some traction there. Just to know as they're working with a client and it comes up, maybe they're looking for a financial advisor, or maybe they could benefit from some advice. It's like, oh wait, I know this person who does this thing. Um, Outside of that, I mean, it's just being as open about it as I can be, talking with people who don't know my personal story about, the work that I do and how I like to specialize here. Um, I'm also involved on a board for a group called Peace Haven. Peace Haven is uh, it's a farm, and it's a place where people live. Um, and those people that live there right now are people with an IDD, an intellectual or developmental disability. Um, and the farm gives them an opportunity to have work, communal work to do together,
Mm-hmm.
and it brings the community in because people come in to buy vegetables and that sort of thing.
Oh, cool.
Gets them out in the community. It's a great operation. It gives everybody a sense of meaning and belonging. But
Hmm.
it is also a place to live. And so as they're working to expand, create more and more housing on this property, Peace Haven hopes to bring, able-bodied people and people with disability to live there together in apartment style, houses or villas or whatever. Um, Picture a community, continuing care community, but built for people who are not necessarily 55 years old or older,
Hmm.
and to kind of create community specifically for a special needs individual. So I'm on that board and involved in that, and that kind of helps get my story out too a little bit.
Hmm. Awesome. Awesome. You got one heck of a story there, Jenny.
Thank you.
Um, awesome. Awesome. Just one second to last question, and then we'll get to the last question. Do you have any specific or effective ways of networking with CPAs and estate attorneys?
Yeah. So for a little while, I tried to keep with a really good rhythm of, reaching out and maybe doing lunch and stopping by with donuts and that sort of thing. It's effective, to stay top of
Oh yeah.
mind. So
Oh yeah.
that having those like really intentional rhythms can go pretty far. But eventually you kind of learn who your referrers are going to be, the people who are likely to refer first. Hopefully will keep you in mind and from time to time think that you're a good fit for that referral, but there are
Hmm.
folks who just don't like to make referrals for some reason. They're not good at it, or they don't feel comfortable doing it. And so kind of knowing who those people are that are going to be making referrals, and then making sure they really understand your story. So yeah, just I did a lot of that, trying to keep a consistent rhythm. And in addition to that, I'm part of, or not currently, but I have been part of a networking group, in town. You can find those specific to the finance industry. So like a um, FPA or a SFSP, the Society of Financial Services Professionals, something like that is a good way to plug in and kind of network with folks in the industry or kind of tangent to the industry. Um, and then, just being intentional about it. I mean, for example, we have a CPA firm in our building. They're upstairs in my building, and tax season is a bear, right? So
Mm,
we're doing lunch for them. One day this week, we'll bring in a food truck and have them come down and have some lunch because
cool.
the good opportunity for us to kind of get them out of their office, stretch their legs, have some fresh air, get a good lunch, and we can also hold them as our captive audience for a couple of minutes.
Hmm. Hmm. That's great. Yeah, no, those are all great strategies. Okay, my final question for you is an open-ended question. You can take it in any direction that you like. And the question is, what are you working towards?
What am I working towards? Well, right now I am working pretty diligently on building my business, my book of business here. When I came to work for Beacon Point 2 years ago, I inherited a book of business from a person who was retiring. So I'm really, really grateful for that and that opportunity and the leg up. And she retired December 31st of 2024. So, we had about a year and a half of kind of overlapping, almost 2 whole years overlapping, working together, uh, carefully transitioning her clients. And so far, that's been an amazing experience, I think, for everybody. But, now it's my goal to kind of continue to grow the business and bring in new prospects and kind of close new business, whether it's people who are just looking to retire or people who specifically need some special needs help. Um, so, we've got some lofty goals for our office. There are 6 advisors here, um, all CFPs, and we've also got, about 6 or 7 other support individuals here in my office. And we're part of, Beacon Point is a national firm, so we're part of 500 employees across the country,
Oh, wow.
offices all over the place. And as a local office here, we have some new asset goals and trying to hit those. So of the 6 advisors, there are 3 of us who are kind of the business development engines. So working really hard on meeting those goals this year.
Mhm. Awesome. And where can my audience find out more about you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I think I'm Jennifer McCosley on LinkedIn, unless it says Jenny. I'm kind of interchangeable, Jennifer and Jenny, in different places, but definitely can find me there. Outside of that, you can visit our website at beaconpoint.com. And then I'm on social media, Facebook and Instagram, but those are personal accounts, and I don't know how much help that would be to anybody. I'm not on there regularly enough for it to be useful. Certainly welcome to find me again on our website and LinkedIn.
Awesome. We will link those in the show notes. Jenny, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. Really supremely enjoyed hearing your story. Um, I'm sure that it sounds like you were, welcomed your new family members with open arms, but I'm certain there were tough times there, and you pushed through with a full heart and an open heart, and now you have this beautiful practice to continue leading with your heart, and that's an amazing thing. So I just want to once again give you a quick attaboy. you
Well,
know
thank you. Thank you very much for saying that. Yeah, and there were times when it was hard, but for the most part, it's been an amazing ride. And
Hmm.
my family is a pretty cool family. Definitely have, I mean, like with my sister, a huge connection with her that I wouldn't have if she wasn't here. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, but it's been a fun ride. Yeah, and thank you for having me
Yeah.
on the show.
Yeah. No, my pleasure. And to all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in and keep on growing out there, everybody. See ya.